Welcome everybody back to the Transformation Leaders Podcast. And today I want to talk about our namesake, transformation. David, is it a dirty word now?
Well, I don't think so. In terms of technology, we're talking about, a lot of thought leadership that really goes into a lot of these types of things. We're looking really at all aspects of technology as well as leadership. So it's a blend of the two coming together because technology is a tool, but at the end of the day, it's really about leadership. It's leadership qualities and the transformations that happen in business. They need to happen organically, but you also have to not have your head buried into the sand. And so if you implement it wrong, then I would then agree with our headline that it could be a dirty word because the perception is horrible things have happened or revenue was lost or people didn't get it, or maybe you didn't implement generative AI with a good layer of governance. And I don't know, maybe it created something that really just embarrassed you really bad. So in that case, maybe.
Well, I think it's the second word in our podcast applies. Leadership, right?
Absolutely.
Leadership. And that's what we're here to talk about. Is transformation can be such a positive thing, but also a negative thing. It requires leadership, and leadership requires wisdom. And the goal here is to take the wise people and really understand how builders and innovators are changing the world around us. So, to me, transformation comes from your typical bad experience. When people say transformation, I think of the DMV walking in and saying, this is awful. Somebody can make this better. Can anybody make this better? Or, when you're on the phone with the IRS and it hangs up on you after transferring you 3 times, like, this needs to be better, So transformation is just another way of saying this needs to be better. Yeah. And when we talk about digital transformation, which is the word that you typically hear with transformation, is because digital allows a faster, highly more scalable, robust type of outcome more than anybody else. And, when you think digital transformation, David, what do you think?
So for me, it means something a little bit different, having come from legal. I spent 12 to 15 years in legal. So, a lot of stuff in the legal aspect of it. And then when I moved into economic development too, as well, again, all focused in IT practice stuff. But it was really about taking the physical world and transforming it into something that the computer can understand, use, leverage. And now we're at the precipice of the next generation and the next layer of that with large language models. And this, again, going back to some of our previous shows or podcasts and even just conversations that we've had with clients, is really centered around saying, if you're putting the cart before the horse and you haven't done a digital transformation, but you want to leverage generative AI, you might be missing something in the middle. You've got this stopgap measure. Doesn't mean you can't get there. It just means the journey to get there maybe is a little bit longer. And so to me, it's really about taking the physical and making it digital so that, the business can operate, the computer can operate. We can start the automation process. We can start doing more with less, which is what every business is driving for. If you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure you have 25 initiatives in your backlog, plus what you're working on, all of them involving some level or some semblance of this. And, the only thing I can say is don't get stuck in the weeds. Always make sure you come out, pop your head out. You need to see that forest through the trees. And so, Sean, what are some of the best practices that customers can do to orientate themselves with regards to trying to understand how do I get my job done but so that I also don't back myself into a corner a year, 2 years from now, because it's not just about digital transformation. It's about the roadmap. It's about how do I get there, and either working with a partner or, collaboratively internal with your team, setting that all up. Like, describe how some of the best practices and what companies should be doing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the best outcome starts with having a North Star, right? You got to have that grand poobah kind of meeting, right? The come to Jesus situation where all the stakeholders come together and say it's time for change,
Yep.
right? And sit down and say, okay, this is who we are. Let's look in the mirror, like, this is who we are. And then, okay, this is where we need to be. And this is when we need to be there. And really create that vision. So the first part is always the vision.
Yep.
And then it's about taking leaders and enabling them, because you can't do a transformation individually. Transformation isn't a Greek mythology. Exactly. There's no Hercules when it comes down to transformation. It's a team effort. And so the North Star allows everybody to make sure they're still in the boat. You want rowing in the right direction, and you need that North Star, and you need the boat. Now, with those individual leaders, you need to divide and conquer, because again, transformation is a strategy. It is not an end goal. It's a journey. So you have individual milestones that you need to come up with that gets you to the promised land, right? You don't want to wander in the desert here. The end of the day is, what are achievable goals that will get you to the end state? Everybody, I remember, we all need to be a microservices architecture. Great. You're not going to be able to take your entire code base and switch it over in one sprint, right? So you need to have that plan. You need to have achievable objectives. Last but not least, and this should go without mention, you need metrics,
Yes.
right? So, at every point, you're going to have the doubts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are we on the right plan? Are we executing? Are we going to get there?
Yep.
But are we wandering in the desert, right? Metrics will help you in the dark days, right?
True.
And the last, and I think you already alluded to it, is you don't want to bite off more than you can chew, right?
Correct.
Now, with that, it is, digital is really where a lot of people have started. They said, okay, we're going to switch from voice to email. We're going to switch from an app running on our data center to a SaaS offer. These are all window dressings to the same kind of thing. You're talking about business impact and change. Now, when it comes to the vision part of this, you've got to ask yourself why you want to transform. And, for me, David, what are some of the reasons that you have seen businesses, have that come to Jesus moment of, hey, we can't keep doing what we're doing?
Yeah. So I think the employees need to be heard by leadership a lot more. They are in the trench. They are on the ground. So if you're a leader in your business and you're in an ivory tower, you're not going to be in that ivory tower much longer. Not only is the technology changing, but the culture in which a business needs to operate at, the efficiency level, the employment engagements, the employees, the customers, they're all driving change at exponential rate. And so, you just mentioned a couple of things. And the first thing that came is this really negative connotation, but it's basically the same pig with new lipstick. And, oh, we'll just slap a different shade of whatever on this pig here, and now we can call it a digital transformation. It more of the same is not a digital transformation. It's just at best a shift to look like it, but real true change. You know, Elon Musk, I think, says something well. He goes down, he takes problems and he tries to solve them. But more importantly, he just goes all the way down to something called first principle. And it's take everything you know and throw it in a trash can and start again. And I really think if leadership really surveyed, and you know, obviously, if you're a multinational company and you have tens or hundreds of thousands of employees, that may not be practical. But your department leadership heads in each of the areas should be, you know, collecting this information and bringing this up to the top so that they can prioritize what needs to be done. And at the end of the day, you got leadership that provides that North Star that you were talking about. Now you have the second phase of the leadership, which is, hey, you know, they're the hammer, they're the nail, they are the architects, they are the operational leaders, your operational folks within your business. They just need to execute on that North Star, drive and push that thing down. And at that second, third tier, R&D. Fail quick, fail fast, and don't be afraid to fail. Learn from your mistakes. What's working? What's not working? Through this innovation, plus using generative AI, by simply just using it as a consultant, go very specific. Don't try to go too broad. And ask some very poignant, straightforward questions to help give you ideas. Now, that's a very generic answer, but what you should be doing, if you're doing the digital transformation correctly, identifying, and you already know this, what business you're in, because leadership knows this already, but, you know, what are my competitors doing? What am I doing? What are my weaknesses? They already have this information. So build this into like a base query for generative AI, add on all of their ancillary data. This is that regular old-fashioned digital transformation in preparation for large language models and generative AI. And then start looking for analytical insights from generative AI so that they can start to see and unfold. The key is asking the generative AI or the AI, what are the correlations? Based on what I know I'm doing well, based on know what I'm doing better, how can I improve what I'm doing well? How can I improve what I'm not doing well at? And my competitors are kicking my you-know-what in this area.
Mm-hmm.
Based on the available information, what is a suggested path forward? That's the 80-20 rule. Bring it back
Mm-hmm.
to that leadership and that executive leadership and say, okay, here's more information. Where do we go? And then let that North Star essentially unfold or redirect kind of as needed. So when it comes to not necessarily even digital transformation, it goes back to, like we were talking about earlier, leadership. I mean, I just mentioned a bunch of technologies and how to use it, but at its core, it has to be how you operate. And again, these folks that are just taking kind of a more hands-offish approach, and the people are, you know, yelling and screaming, and the customers are yelling and screaming. They're having that DMV experience, and they're going, what are some accelerators, like the customers that we've talked to that you've experienced over the years? Like, what are some things that you've seen that really identifies the good leaders from maybe the not so good leaders? And, you know, it's not necessarily to call anybody out for something, but we're all learning. We're all drinking from the fire hose.
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know, organically, we all should be doing what we're passionate about and what we love doing. But I know you've seen leaders that are there that maybe shouldn't be there. And there's other leaders that are there that, I mean, they're just, you know, they've filled their purpose. So
Yeah.
kind of talk about what you've seen over the years, about what you know that's worked, and without, you know, given any names, just kind of talk about their process and what you know that would work, and how does it apply here to digital transformations and just leadership in general.
Yep. So you have in my mind, you have different types of leaders. You have the visionary leaders, right? And those get all the press. They're the Steve Jobs, they're the Elon Musks who say, here is the future, and we're going to conquer the future. Very inspiring, right? But what no one really realizes is they'll have people underneath them who are going to be the other type of leaders, which are the data-driven leaders, right? Yep. The data-driven leaders, they are the leaders that have the business metrics. They're tracking the business metrics, and they don't need faith in the future. They have facts that are driving decisions. So, the third type of leader that unfortunately is out there is the delusional leader, right? They are visionary, and they may have an excellent vision, but they can't enact their vision because they're missing the data. So I always tell people, when you're going to be a leader, it is important to have a vision. Absolutely. But you need to ground it in reality. You need to make it so that there's a path that the layman can walk through to get from the valley of despair into paradise, right? You need to be the shepherd.
They need to be the light in the North Star. They need to provide the direction.
So, this dovetails into the North Star, right? Yeah. Now, not all leaders are going to have the path, right? It's hard. There's nothing easy about leadership nowadays, especially in technology and information technology, especially. But having the data, understanding, you talked about listen to your employees, listen to your customers, surveys, right? Data capturing. If you're not doing surveys and you're not doing data capture on your experiences, you need to put everything else aside until you can understand whatever you're going to change is going to make a positive or negative change, right? Data is something that will give you that warmth when you're cold alone in your decisions. So highly recommend being as data-driven as practical. Now, the end of the day is there are people out there who are very tactical, and they are late to the game because of how tactical they are. It doesn't make you a bad leader, right? But it makes, to me, a lot easier for a leader to be data-driven and tactical to get to the promised land quicker. It's just, you're not going to get the press of Elon Musk. Who does? Not many people own a social media platform and are a business leader like that.
So besides customer surveys and besides, your typical general, touch points, how else or what is a good approach and a strategy for either a technical leader or somebody that's tactical? What should they be looking for in the data? Like, they see all of this unstructured data. Like, what are some of the steps that they should start taking? Because obviously they're going to be receiving some guidance, some requests for information or particular data points. But how do they say, okay, this is well and good, I can do this. But how do they think, what else is driving this question? What else should I provide to complete the picture? It's more than just being a leader. It's also about having foresight and almost your own North Star in your limited tunnel vision. So what should those type of smaller leaders do that are basically being delegated in the trench with their teams? How do they make this better?
Yeah, I mean, number one, understanding what your company is doing in the industry that you're doing, in the geography that it's doing it in, right? Having that kind of context. I know in my day job, we do lots of strategy engagements to help navigate those crazy waters. So partnerships is an excellent opportunity, but having an understanding of who your customer base is, who your employee base, understanding things like demographics, right? You know, if you are selling to boomers and you are selling to zoomers, you better understand the difference between the two. I can tell you that my kids won't do anything than unless it's on an app, right? I come from the website experience generation. My parents, unless they can talk to a human being, they're not going to choke and provide some cash.
Can I write a check?
Exactly. It comes down to that. Understanding business models. Like I remember, and I started a great services company way back in the day. And then we found out that our clients and customers wanted software solutions. So we created software. And then once we started doing that and they noticed how bad the hosting model was for them to deal with, they asked for a SaaS solution, right? And everything moved from a SaaS model. My company of 15 years changed business models at least a dozen times. So going with the times, understanding where you are. Sometimes you're smart and you hit the market right. Like I know we embraced HTML4 very, very early and were rewarded for that. And then we embraced microservices far too late and were hurt by a cloud native movement. So just because you make a bet and lose doesn't mean you lost the company. You will eventually get there. Making huge bets may be great for people who have billions of dollars in the bank, but when you have an employees of 50 people that you're relying upon and they're relying upon you to feed their family, you may want to understand your risk profile. So in the long and short of it is transformation is about navigating your business through the waters. Maybe your business is a division. Maybe your business is a team. Maybe your business is your own company. Either way, you're going to be given certain authorization and responsibility to be able to get things done. And that means changing the organization when you see it's necessary. I really want to take this last couple minutes to talk about, just understanding. I mean, we talked about different hosting. We talked about, digital. There are tons of other transformations that you can have. Some are doing hardware transformations like IoT. Some are doing immersive experiences. So we don't want to kind of limit what change means to you and what technology can do to change. But I certainly want to finish with this discussion around, how you see, David, people getting started with this.
Getting started.
How do you start the transformation?
So I think honestly, it starts personally with a personal transformation, like your paradigm, your way of thinking. So there's a great author that I would recommend. It's John Maxwell or John C. Maxwell. He has a book called 360 Leadership. And it's really about people coming away from the idea of it's not my chair, it's not my problem, and identifying that, look, some things are just not going to come to you the way that you think they are. Like there may be the North Star in your organization, but if you're unaware of what's going on because maybe you're too far down in the trench, but you've got all the pressure and responsibility of executing this, but you don't really know what the big picture is, take the initiative, lead sideways, ask for the information that you're missing. Or ask your supervisor to say, hey, listen, I'm really looking forward to doing what I need to do. can we have a meeting with your boss or our boss's boss or the leadership? I have a couple of key questions that I'm kind of stuck at, but I need that high level executive guidance. I need to see more of the direction. I need to understand where we're going so that I can do my job better. That will be not only appreciated, but it will make your boss look better too. And because you've led sideways and you've either circumvented or done whatever, you've gone through the chain of command the way you're supposed to, but you're just asking for information for everybody to be able to do what they're responsible for delivering. You're not going to get much resistance. So with that understanding, it's then just coming up with, I say, create an outline, try to get an outline from senior leadership, that North Star guidance. It's not going to have all of the details in the trench, but if you look at an outline, think about writing. I don't know if anybody here's an author listening, but if you've ever tried to write anything, you start with an outline and then you flesh things out piece by piece by piece. And at the end of the day, you've got a book. And that's essentially how companies should run. You've got the outline coming from the executive management, and as it goes down the rungs into the person literally writing the code into the trench, they need to know, hey, it's my turn, I'm up. And that's essentially historically where a lot of companies fail. And there's an expression, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. And it's classified over the years as a communication problem. And it is. But hey, just because you're not going to get the information or you can't get to the information or the answers, I think just take it upon yourself to take that initiative. Change starts with you. And until you drive it, you could be at the top pushing it down. You could be at the bottom trying to, help pull it down or get it out. But wherever you are in the organization, don't be afraid to ask questions, because if you're silent, well, that's where, essentially transformation becomes a dirty word. And now you've turned right into, where we're talking about. If it's okay with you, I want to share with our readership. I'm going to share my screen here. We've got a page here on our website, and it's called the 9 Pillars to Understanding Transformational Leadership. It's right here off the top. Over time, we'll be fleshing this out a little bit more, but here's 9 things that you can do to help drive change within your organization. Here's a couple of example, very brief case studies of who they are. We've called out a couple of them here today on this call, but in any event, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming to this podcast. It's relatively short, but we really just wanted to have a conversation around essentially, what our podcast is about, what we're trying to achieve and accomplish, kind of the culture and the direction, our brand, as far as, when you come here, stop by, what you're going to learn, who you're going to talk to. We're always looking for new people, leaders in the organization. We'd love to talk to you. If you have a success story, you don't necessarily have to have permission from your company. You can just leave a lot of the stuff out. We have a very generic conversation. Matter of fact, Sean and I are no logos. We don't talk about where we work. We just simply say, hey, if you want to know anything about us, check us out on LinkedIn and reach out to us that way. So we're just really mainly interested about having a conversation with the community, all over the world, essentially. And so if you've got time and you've got, some success stories, we would absolutely love to talk to you. Sean, anything else to add to that? I don't know if I froze or maybe you froze, Sean. Yep, I think we lost Sean. Well, in any event, thank you very much, everybody, for your time today. We'll see you next Wednesday. Have a great day. Bye-bye.